Hello, can I just bring the committee to order, please? Thank you. Before we get started, we have to do the election of a chairman. As the council, we've gone down to one committee. I'll hand over to Steve.
Of course. So, thank you very much. As the first item on the agenda, we do need to elect a chairman for the committee. This is the inaugural meeting of the Hillingdon Planning Committee. We have a proposal for Councillor Higgins to be the chair. We would need a mover and a seconder for that proposal.
Okay. I move the nomination of Councillor
Councillor Bennett.
I'm happy to second that.
Perfect. Okay.
And I'll nominate Councillor Bennett as vice chairman.
Okay.
I will second that.
Okay. So we will put it to a vote for the election of chair. So we have a mover and seconder. Councillor Higgins, as a nominee, you wouldn't be voting, but you can have a show of hands for that proposition as Councillor Higgins as chair. Okay, perfect. And then for Councillor Bennett as the vice chair, Councillor Bennett, you wouldn't be voting.
I can.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So, as you were. Welcome to those attending and viewers watching live on our council YouTube channel here in London. My name is Councillor Higgins, as you've just been told, and I'm chairing this meeting. Details of business to be considered today are shown on the agenda, and copies of which will be accessible in the room and online under this live broadcast. For those present in the room and attending to speak, please note that you will be filmed and any statement you make will be recorded and made public. A reminder to anyone speaking today that your voice will only be audible online if the microphone is switched on. We're not expecting any fire drills tonight, so if the fire alarm does go off, please follow officers out of the building. Those people with mobiles or tablet devices, can you please either switch them off or have them on silent? You note that councillors and the committee, like myself, we're trying to go paperless, have computers and stuff in front of us, so we're not playing Candy Crush or anything like that. Well, I hope not over there. Anyway, so we go through the attendees. Councillor Adam Bennett, my vice chair, welcome. Councillor Roy Chandal, welcome. Councillor Darren Davis, welcome. Councillor Singh, welcome. Councillor Mand, welcome. And Councillor Garrett, welcome. Okay. I will now go through the officer corps. I have Kate Crosby, Area Planning Service Manager, sitting to my right, and Ed Lawton, Strategic Planning and PPA Manager, on her right. So, and then I've got Hayden Richards, Principal Planning Officer, Michael Bringshaw, welcome. Alan Tilley, welcome. You're a regular. My legal is Shia Ashad, welcome. And I'm not allowed to call him James, but Jimmy Walsh is my other legal advisor, and Steve Clark, Democratic Officer, who keeps me in check and makes sure that I'm following procedure. And before I go any further, this is Steve's last meeting with us, so I'd like to say a big thank you from the committee and from myself. You've always been very helpful and very brilliant at what you do, and we will sadly miss you. But I wish you all the best for the future, and I'm sure you'll be a great success wherever you go. So, okay. So, we go down to apologies from absence.
Okay, this evening we've had no apologies for absence, Chairman.
Thank you. Declarations of interest and matters before this meeting. Councillor Chadal.
Thank you, Chairman. I just, on item number 10, I know the developer, he's just turned up on advice of legal and democratic services. I've been told I have to leave the room. Okay, thank you. We're going to receive the minutes of the Major Application Committee on pages 1 to 6, dated the 14th of September. Are those agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Then we're also going to receive the minutes of the Borough Planning Committee, which is on the 5th of October. Yes, sorry.
So we have a slight amendment to make to the minutes of the 5th of October Borough Planning Committee. On page 10 of your pack, number 40, 28 Jacks Lane, the petitioner's statement reads, mentions a proposed 6-bed house. This should read as a 5-bed house, so that amendment will be made, subject to the committee's approval tonight.
Okay, does everybody agree those? And then also another Major Application Planning Committee on the 11th of October 23. Do we have those agreed as well? Yeah, thank you very much. There's no matters notified as advanced or urgent. Can confirming that all items are in part 1, so there will be no part 2. I will now let Roy leave and enjoy his coffee. And we now have a presentation for item 10, 2F Beacon Close, Uxbridge.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening all. Okay, so item 10 relates to 2F Beacon Close in Uxbridge. The application seeks planning permission for the erection of an attached 3-bedroom house and also alterations to the existing house. The development site is located on the corner of Harefield Road and also Beacon Close. As you can see, the area is mostly residential. You can see some terraces to the north. There are also some smaller terraces to the west, and there are some detached houses and a few semi-detached houses in the area. So the character and layout of the area is quite varied, but as you can see, it's a residential area. In terms of constraints, the development site is located within an archaeological protection zone. It's also located upon potentially contaminated land, and the map shows that it's in a parking management area as well. In terms of plans, here's the existing plan of the site. It's not clear, unfortunately. I think it's because the screen is high definition and the drawings aren't. But in terms of the layout, as you can see, we've got 2 semi-detached houses, and to the side of the site on the boundary we have some hedging and some greenery. There's access to site from Beacon Close for vehicles, and that's the existing site. Here we have the proposed site plan showing where the new dwelling will be. As you can see, it would be positioned to the side of the house, and it would create a terrace of 3 properties. As you can see from this plan already, there are a set of 3 also to the south of the site, so the development would be in keeping with the area's character in that there are terraces to the rear of the site, and there would be a terrace to the front of the site created by the new development. Here's an existing elevation plan of the site. As you can see, we've got one half of a semi-detached property. It's finished in brick and cladding. I'll show you some photos earlier. It has a pitched roof and it's a 3-bedroom house. What's being proposed is an additional 3-bedroom house. The additional house will be finished in similar materials, i.e. brick and cladding. It would have a pitched roof to match the existing roof. It would finish in line with the neighbouring property in terms of its footprint, and it would have an L-shaped footprint similar to the neighbouring property, so it's very similar in terms of its design. In terms of works to the existing house, as you can see, we had a garage which was previously on the front elevation, and that's going to be replaced by a window. Other than that, the development is very similar to what is already at the site, and as I said, it would result in a terrace of 3. Some concerns were raised during the process of the application about car parking. 1 car parking space would be provided for the new house, and 1 car parking space would be provided for the existing house, which is in accordance with the London plan, so we feel that adequate parking would be provided. Concerns were also raised about the retention of trees on the site's boundaries. We have put a condition on the application for a tree protection plan to ensure that those trees are retained during construction and after the development. Concerns were also raised about the impact of the development on the character and appearance of the area. As shown in the previous slides, there is a set of 3 terraces to the rear of the site, and this would result in a set of 3 to the front of the site, so I don't think it's out of character, and the building itself would be finished in similar materials and would be of similar design to the neighbouring house. There's also a terrace of 4 to the north of the site, which I'll show you in a minute. So here we have a bird's eye view of the plan. This is our development site where the red laser is. As I said, to the south of the site you've got this terrace of 3, and then to the north we've got this terrace of 4, and there are some detached properties and there are some other semi-detached properties. So as I mentioned previously, the development would be in keeping with the area's character, especially as it would be finished in similar materials and would have a similar design. Here is the site as it stands at the moment. As you can see, we've got a space which looks like it is ready for a new house, and the development site would be set away from these trees and the hedging, and those are the trees which would be retained as part of the development. Here we've got another view of the area at the moment. To the rear of the site, that is the new dwelling. Well, I think it was approved in 2018. Full details are in the committee report, and we would, like I said, have a 3rd property in this position which would create the terrace of 3. Here's a view of the front of the site, showing the existing parking, and like I said, views of where the new house is going to be. Here are properties to the rear of the site. So this is the one which was approved, I believe, in 2018. As you can see, has a similar layout, although this is quite slightly bigger. And I think it's also worth pointing out that on the application drawings, it shows a garage being changed into a window for the existing house. As you can see on these, we do have windows instead of garages. It is a common feature of this area, windows instead of garages, so I do think that is okay, and it is mixed frontage, and everyone has the cladding to the front of the property, which this proposed house will also have. Here are some other properties on Beacon Close. This is the set of 4 to the north of the site, which I showed you on the bird's eye view plan. And for those reasons, we will be recommending the application for approval subject to conditions, and the full reasons are set out in the officer's report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hayden. Over to you, Steve. I think we've got everything's written on this one. So first we'll have the petitioner, and then the applicant and agent, and then one of the ward councillors. So I'll let you go with that.
So first up, we have a written statement from the lead petitioner objecting to this application. Unfortunately, they are unwell and unable to make it this evening. Members of the Hillingdon Planning Committee, my name is Hilary Beale. I live at 2E Beacon Close, and I'm one of the signatories to the petition which has been submitted in opposition to the above planning application. Please consider and take account of the views of the petitioners in respect to this application. The application seeks to build a new house within the garden of 2F Beacon Close. This will create a terrace of 3 houses instead of the existing semi-detached structure. I acknowledge the hard work of the planning officers, but I am disappointed by their recommendation for approval, which appears to me to have inadequately considered several of the key aspects of the proposed development. Number 1 is the design of the proposed new building is completely inconsistent with the street scene. Beacon Close is a quiet cul-de-sac largely comprising detached family homes. As acknowledged by the officer's report, all 3 prior planning applications for this site have been refused, and for good reason. The fact that a similar development has been approved in Salt Hill Close is irrelevant. The street scene in Beacon Close is fundamentally different to that of Salt Hill Close. Number 2 is that Beacon Close is a quiet cul-de-sac. Currently 2F is vacant and has been so for almost a year, and the previous occupant was not a motorist. As indicated in the officer's report, the PTEL rating of the site is extremely low, and therefore the absence of viable public transport facilities will maximise future residents' reliance upon and use of private vehicles. The introduction of this proposed development therefore has the potential to add between 4 to 6 additional cars, which will add to traffic within Beacon Close. The application site is immediately adjacent to the junction between Harefield Road and Beacon Close. The inevitable increase in curbside parking will therefore maximise the potential for road traffic accidents for vehicles and pedestrians. This proposed development will therefore cause increased demand for parking, which will be in direct conflict with the existing U8 parking management scheme. Number 3 is that the applicant has already caused wholesale destruction of bushes and trees on the application site, no doubt to avoid the imposition of any planning restrictions. This therefore renders the proposed condition 14 in the officer's report virtually superfluous. Number 4, the extent of the development will leave minimal external amenity space in the form of gardens for 2F and the new house. Number 5, these proposals, or any derivation of them, were to be accepted, then the construction phases of the project would cause considerable noise, disruption and traffic congestion to neighbouring residents both in Harefield Road and on Beacon Close. Furthermore, as I've already explained, 2F Beacon Close is situated at the junction between Harefield Road and Beacon Close. The presence of construction plant and delivery vehicles will further increase congestion and the risk of road traffic accidents. In the event that this application is unfortunately approved, I request that officers implement additional conditions to address these concerns. Members of the committee, Beacon Close is a quiet residential street on the very edge of Uxbridge. Its residents have invested in the homes in this street and have a right to expect that their way of life should not be disrupted and disturbed by a scheme which is designed with the sole objective of generating the largest financial return possible for the applicant, who is a professional property developer. I ask you to therefore consider favourably our reasons for refusal of this application and to reject it. Thank you. Okay, so that was a statement from the lead petitioner. We move on to a statement we've received from the agent for this application. Okay, so we understand that the main concerns are road safety issues, restricted car parking spaces, creation of terraced housing, which is currently semi-detached, inconsistency of design with the neighbouring houses. We set out below our response to each of them. With regard to road safety issues, the scheme has been discussed with the Highways Department, who have confirmed that the distance between the new parking space and the junction is sufficient to avoid any safety issues. On restricted parking spaces, the length and width of the parking space are in keeping with the Highway Department standards. On the creation of terraced housing, the design has been modified as requested so that the front projection matches the adjacent dwelling of 2E and 2F. The creation of a three-dwelling terrace will now be in keeping with the existing terrace at 15 to 2D Beacon Close. And on matters of inconsistency of design with the neighbouring houses, the new dwelling will have facing brick, white cladding, concrete roof tiles and white UPVC windows and doors, which all match the adjacent property. Yours sincerely. Okay, and finally we have a statement from Councillor Keith Burrows, Ward Councillor for Uxbridge. I have seen the reasons that the residents are putting forward to committee and I fully support them in their objections to this application. I note Salt Hill has been mentioned because of a previous approval there, but Beacon Close is nothing like the dwellings or with the same outlooks as in Beacon Close from the current properties. I would request the committee to take the objections from the residents seriously and vote not to support officers' recommendations for approval on this application. If the committee are not certain about rejecting the officer's recommendation, could I put a proposal to the committee in deferring the decision for a site visit so you are able to see why the resident objection to this application and the implications this will have for Beacon Close and the residents, and that way give an objective view of the area and the surroundings. Thank you in advance.
Okay, thank you, Steve, for that. Okay, do the officer want to come back on any of the things that are in the petition at all? I think you've already stated about the trees staying, so that's one's ticked off. The parking, it's Alan, you got anything further to add to that?
Thank you, Chairman. I can confirm that the car parking is in conformity with the London Plan standards. Each property would retain one car parking space each.
Okay. Yeah,
thank you, Chairman.
Hayden.
Sorry, Chair, and just to respond on matters regarding construction traffic, there is a condition on the application for a construction management plan which should reduce any adverse impacts of construction.
Thank you. Katie?
Just to basically clarify on the previous application that had been refused, it was one that was for a bungalow, so it's different to the one being proposed now, which is a matching attached terrace property. And as Hayden went through before with the photos, there are two properties to the rear of the site that have been granted planning permission since that refusal.
Thank you. Now I'll open it to the floor. Who wants to? Councillor Davis? Councillor Bennett?
Thank you, Chairman. I have two questions, if I may.
Yes, sure.
The first one is on the construction management plan. Are we able to firm up delivery times? Because I've noted it is a cul-de-sac, and there's no restrictions. So, is there a way that we can put deliveries after 9 o'clock? Is that something we could add? Second question is: are we happy with condition 13 for the retaining the trees? I know as you are, as I am, Chairman, we're very fond of greenery and protecting the environment. Is there a way we could put a condition in to add further trees and greenery or shrubbery?
On the tree issue, I think we're overstretching our reach asking for more, but we can actually make sure that we have some conditions. I'll let officers come back. Hayden, do you want to take? Yeah, fine.
Just looking at the condition regarding the construction management plan and delivery hours, the hours of work are in the condition, so we can restrict them to be within social hours. And in terms of delivery, that is something that we could add, although I'm not sure it's necessary or would meet the conditions for putting conditions on applications.
Of course, you may come back, yes.
My concern is purely for the residents. Most people would leave for work between 6 and 9. I wouldn't say it was unfair to have anything after 9 o'clock for delivery.
I think, on the other hand, most builders start at 8, don't they?
I understand that.
I don't know whether it's up to committee to decide. I'm not going to be being a bit of a devil's advocate here, but I would think we have to be careful that we don't become too onerous on developments. This is a very small development. So,
It's a very small time window.
okay, that's fine. That's up to committee to decide that. What the other one was the retaining of the trees.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to clarify in terms of the deliveries. So there is an informative just regarding the noise and nuisance and the control of it from construction work, where demolition construction works, well, loud ones from a site usually can't be carried out between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. Monday to Friday. I'd probably recommend in terms of services or deliveries is as a compromise at 8 o'clock in the morning or after 8.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd be happy with that, Chairman. Thank
Very
you.
good. There you go. So we are working, Mr. Chair. That's fine. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman. Mine wasn't really a question, it was just to pick up on the petitioner. First off, I hope that they feel better soon, and we're always very grateful when residents show an interest and take the time to not only read through an application but to put a petition in. But I don't think any of the concerns that are raised are necessarily factual or material planning considerations. It's not different to the street scene. We've seen images of it, that the property is proposed to be identical to the one next door. I don't see how one new property is going to generate 4 to 6 cars to be parked nearby. There is good public transport. There are 2 bus routes that run along Harefield Road. In terms of the removal of trees, it is, unless they're protected, the landowner owns the property. They can do whatever they want with that site. And actually, when you look at the pictures there, you have to think, if you were a resident in that street, would you want to be looking at that really messy garden, railings up at the front, sounds like I think they said it had been unoccupied for a year.
But we've actually conditioned to keep those trees at the moment. So you're saying to remove it?
So, well, I get, the petitioner said in there
That's the petitioner,
that their trees have been removed today.
but officers have worked. Nothing's going to... What's there now will remain, am I correct?
Yes.
So
Yes.
you know, and it's a
I think
nice
the petitioner was implying that they were getting rid of trees ahead of this coming to us. But
well, if they decide to do that, they'll have some actions from this authority. But
no, I sympathise, and
we do.
I'm happy to propose that we
Thank
move
you
on to
very
the
much.
recommendation.
So I have a proposer, Councillor Davis. You wanted to come back before.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Bennett's actually beat me to it. The only very brief one is just to look on the residents' comments that there was plans to widen the road. I understand it's not. I just want to double check. There is no plans, or I'm not sure if I'm overstepping, but I'm going to ask.
You are overstepping, no.
So there's no plans to date
No.
that we know of.
No.
In that case, Chairman, I'm happy to second and go with officers' recommendations.
Okay. Any other comments? Nope. Okay. So I'm proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands? All those in favour of the application for approval? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Right. So it's, Councillor Davis, could you mind getting... Sorry. Okay, thank you. You can sit there. They're getting... Right, item 11, rooftop at Point West. Whose is this? Hayden, again. Right.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so item 11 refers to rooftop at Point West, Uxbridge Road, Hayes. The application seeks planning permission for the installation of 4 new microwave transmission dishes on brace support poles fixed to the face of the building and 1 new 150mm wide cable tray, alongside the removal of 3 microwave transmission dishes on freestanding poles. So, in short, there are 4 dishes being proposed and 3 being removed on top of the building. Here is a location plan of the site. As you can see, the site is located on the north side of Uxbridge Road. The site and area itself is mixed use. In terms of constraints, there are no notable constraints to the development site. As you can see on the plan, it is within a secondary shopping area. However, that constraint isn't relevant to a development of this nature. In terms of the proposed site, I will just draw you to my cursor. So in red here, we have the proposed telecommunications equipment. This is where the 4 dishes are going to be. And this area here in dark grey are the telecommunications dishes to be removed, and here is another telecommunications dish to be removed. So as I said, 4 are being proposed and 3 already exist on the top of the building alongside other equipment, but 3 are being removed. The cable tray is located in this area. It's probably worth noting that the telecommunications equipment is 32 metres up in the air, which you will see from the photos on top of the roof point building. In terms of elevations, as you can see, this is our new satellite dishes. They sit below existing equipment on top of the roof of the building, so in terms of their size and general location, it's okay. And as I said, in terms of character, I think the development is also okay, as the existing roof is already being used for telecommunications equipment. This plan here shows the 4 dishes in close-up and as well as their brackets. Here we have a bird's eye view of the plan, and the site, as you can see, is located within a mixed use area. Here are the frontage properties and the view of the site from Uxbridge Road. This is the view that residents and locals would tend to get walking down the road. The development site is on the left hand side, and here is the access to the site where my cursor is. Here is the view from the south side of Uxbridge Road, and here you can see the size of the building and some existing telecommunications equipment on top of the building. And this is the large mast, and ours would sit below that mast and a little bit further back. So I'm just going to read the conclusion for our recommendation on this, as I know concerns have been raised. So, during the process of the application, concerns were raised regarding the development's adverse health impacts. A ICNIRP declaration has been submitted in support of the application to ensure that it will be built and operated in a way that has no adverse health impacts. A request was made from a resident to consult Ofcom on the validity of the certificate. Ofcom are not a statutory consultee and are not involved in the determination of planning applications or assessing ICNIRP certificates. Concerns were also raised by residents regarding the agent not being a registered part of Ofcom. There is no requirement within the MPPF, local plan or other legislation requiring applicants or agents to be on the Ofsted register when submitting ICNIRP declarations. Concerns were also raised by a resident regarding the site address and an anomaly within the site address. This has been corrected, and therefore all ICNIRP issues have been addressed. The certificate is considered to be valid and the development is considered to be acceptable. Taking into consideration that the development would have no adverse visual impacts or health impacts, the proposal is considered to be acceptable, and it is recommended that the application be approved subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hayden. Okay, so we have a petitioner, Hilary Beale. Is she present? Would you like to... Sorry, Katrina Patterson, I do beg your pardon. See, I told you he keeps me in order. That was the previous person. I just looked down and read the first thing. Please take a seat.
Before I start, I've got a paper copy of what I'm going to say.
No.
That would, no. If it's your speech, then that would actually be handy with me writing the minutes.
Yeah. So you can give it to Steve, but the other committee members, I'd rather.
Of course, yeah, that would help.
If you send it to him, that's.
Yeah, I'll. If you leave it by the back table at the end of the meeting, I can.
Okay. May I call you Katrina, or would you prefer Ms. Patterson? Katrina, you have 5 minutes. We have a traffic light system. Green for 4, amber means you've got 1, and red will mean stop. And with all the best will in the way and how lovely you are, I will stop you after that goes red. Okay? So whenever you're ready, press the button. Thank you.
Okay.
Dear councillors, people find that the existing arrangement of masts and antennae at the top of Point West building makes an unsightly and threatening silhouette. They don't want any additions. I would like to affirm that siting and amenity does cover health impacts to residents living in and close proximity to this site and should be considered despite the specific wording of NPPF 118. This policy can be set aside. There is precedent for that. And I would like to highlight the fact that you do not have the information you need to fully assess the health risks from this application. I therefore ask you to apply precaution. Refuse this application, which as a competent authority under the European Electronics Communication Code, you are obliged to do. There is not enough evidence of safety to proceed with this plan. Recently, I learnt that Swisscom, a major player in the telecom industry, knew in 2004 that there was evidence of non-thermal harm to humans in contact with EMFs, specifically changes in chromosome level, which can lead to cancers, and contrary to what is stated in the ICNIRP safety conditions. It reminds me of the tactics of the tobacco industry and the asbestos industry in our own borough to cover up harm over decades. It was always the public that brought about change. Microwave hearing over time can be stressful and affect health. Where is the evidence of microwave auditory limit testing at ground level? It is a problem that the exclusion zone diagrams for the combined radiation emitting equipment at this site are not provided, so we are not in a position to know for sure where the boundary of safety lies. Where is the perimeter of the public exclusion zone? We don't know. We cannot be assured it does not penetrate areas where the public will be. Where is the perimeter of the occupational zone? We have no information about the potential hotspots created by these new dishes with the existing infrastructure and the array of masts further along the Uxbridge Road. The WHO International EMF Project, of which the UK is a member, is recommending that 3D coverage maps and interference hotspot maps are provided to planning authorities. We do not have this information. Telecom-specific impact assessments are being called for in the EEC submission, but until we have this information, precaution should be applied. Additionally, I would like to emphasise that peer-reviewed science has presented by Dr. Kent Chamberlain of the New Hampshire State Commission on Non-Ionising Radiation at the Royal Society of Medicine June this year already supports at least a 500-metre setback to protect residents from known health effects such as nausea, dizziness and sleep abnormalities. This cannot be achieved for residents in the building, and especially pregnant women, young children and anyone with metal implants, including amalgam fillings, who are specifically excluded from the cover of the ICNIRP guidelines. The fact that we are all electrical beings running on tiny mitochondrial batteries in each of our cells is indisputable. We are each sensitive to the frequencies surrounding us to a different degree. Electrohypersensitivity to radio frequency radiation is now being recognised by the courts and disability boards and has yet to be reflected in government policy. The impact of this installation on the residents already suffering extreme health issues with EHS, estimated to be 5% of the population, and the possibility that it may cause EHS in others cannot be fully assessed.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you as well for coming along. I'd like to think we're a nice committee. Sometimes it can be quite intimidating coming up and sitting here. Could I just ask, where in relation to the building do you live? Are you a local resident nearby?
No, I live in Hillingdon, and we're all affected by all of this.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Katrina, thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, Katrina. Could you just get the button on the microphone again? Yeah, just to make sure it turns off.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, we have a written response from Helen Bonham. Over to you, Steve.
Okay, so I have a written statement from the agent for this application. New Line Networks is seeking planning permission for the installation of 4 new microwave transmission dishes on brace support poles fixed to the face of the building and 1 new 150mm wide cable tray alongside the removal of 3 existing microwave transmission dishes on freestanding support frames. Point West is a high-rise 10-storey building approximately 31.7 metres tall, which already hosts a significant number of telecommunications installations, including the existing transmission dishes belonging to New Line Networks. The National Planning Policy Framework considers the reuse of existing sites to be the best option when considering locations for telecommunications installations. The Planning Officer's report confirms that the proposal would support the aims and objectives of the London Plan and the local plan, as it would improve telecommunications coverage in the area. The applicant intends to remove the 3 existing 0.6 metre transmission dishes on support frames, as the purpose of the proposal is to upgrade the existing network and maintain line-of-sight functionality and connection within the applicant's network. Point West is not located in a conservation area, nor is it of historic interest. The immediate surrounding area is of mixed commercial and residential use, as is the Point West building itself. The proposed equipment is modest in scale and will sit among extensive existing rooftop equipment, some elements of which are significantly taller. The visual impact of the development overall would be very limited relative to the scale of the building and the extent of equipment already there. It therefore follows that no undue harm to the character and appearance of the area would arise. Indeed, the officer's delegated report accepts that the proposed development is unlikely to harm neighbouring amenities or highway safety, and the development would sit amongst existing equipment such that it would not be out of character. Furthermore, as the development would replace existing equipment, there would not be a harmful net increase in equipment on the rooftop. Accordingly, as concluded in the Planning Officer's report, the proposed development would have an acceptable impact on the amenities of neighbouring properties. The microwave transmission links used by New Line Networks are entirely directional and transmit in a very narrow and focused field directly between the antenna, which are located on the building rooftops and masts at heights in excess of 20 metres. The microwaves will therefore not impact the surrounding area in any way. The certificate confirming that the proposal complies with ICN-IRP guidelines was included with the application. It is also noted that the proposed installation will not affect any of the existing telecommunications infrastructure in terms of health and safety. New Line Networks considers this proposal to be in compliance with national, regional and local planning policies, and therefore respectfully requests that the planning permission be granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. We have an addendum, which Kate's going to read out a point on there. Obviously, anyway, it's self-explanatory. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. So I think the issue that hasn't been, the outstanding issue is the impact on health of nearby residents. So there is an addendum. The report does touch upon the MPPF and what needs to be considered when determining applications for telecoms, but it's also reiterated in the addendum that's been distributed to members. So if I just read policy, or paragraph 118 of the National Planning Policy Framework. So local planning authorities must determine applications on planning grounds only. They should not seek to prevent competition between different operators, question the need for an electronic communications system, or set health safeguards different from the International Commission guidelines for public exposure. So in terms of the International Commission guidelines, this is the ICNIRP certificate or declaration that has been referred to by the petitioner and Hayden. So that is in paragraph 117. So applications for electronic communications development should be supported by the necessary evidence to justify the proposed development. So in respect to the additions to existing mast or base stations, this includes a statement that self-certifies that the cumulative exposure when operational will not exceed International Commission guidelines on non-ionizing radiation protection. That's what INCNIRP stands for. So that has been submitted with the application. It is a self-certification, it's a self-declaration. So that is essentially all that planning, well, in terms of determining the planning application, that's all that we can consider. We can't consider imposing different guidelines on the application. So, thank you.
Thank you, Katie. I'd just like to say that I know, being chairman of the planning for a long while, we're quite good on masks and not putting them in the wrong place. But what I would say to the petitioner, if you take it up with your ward councillor or write into the select committee for health, I think it's health and children and families, they might want to look at this issue in more depth where it's more appropriate than it is at the committee here. Councillor Chandel and Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the petitioner made a very good point, but as the officers have said, we have to, in terms of the remit of the committee, we have to do it on planning grounds. We've got a building which has existing antennae, microwave dishes. They're putting another one in. It is at quite a distance. And as the Chairman has said, we have been very good with these applications where applications have come in for where we thought it was inappropriate. We have refused them. But unfortunately, this one, no. If we were to, I don't know what grounds we could refuse it on, but if we went to the inspectorate, I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't take more, or he or she wouldn't take more than 5 minutes to say no. So I would go with the officer's recommendations because of what's been presented and exactly where the dish is.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Chamdow said exactly what I was going to say. If we look at what's going up, they're removing 3 old ones, which we never normally see. So really, in hindsight, it's only one additional dish. And I can't see any reason to refuse it without it going for appeal, and we could lose any conditions that we have. So with that in mind, and with your recommendation of the petitioner going to the Families Health and Wellbeing Select Committee, I would go with officer's recommendations. Happy to second.
I proposed and seconded. You want to come in? Councillor Garlick.
Thank you, Chair. Just a little note that on page 56, it says that the ICNIRP guidelines are just guidelines. They do not guarantee that the development would have no adverse health impacts. And I noticed there's no statement from Public Health England. So that must be raising because the government says that it's all safe. Although 2 years ago there was a government consultation where all the scientific evidence was presented, and there is no statement on that until now. So
yeah, you just said it. It's very interesting, but it's something that we should.
Just one more point that I read recently that the Lloyd's underwriters include some of them in some general insurance. They exclude any medical claims which are directly or indirectly caused by radiation from masts. So that's also an interesting fact.
Okay, thank you for that. So we're proposed and seconded. Can we go forward with officer's recommendation of all those hands of approving or voting, please? So okay. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're against. Okay. So we have 6, 4, and 1 against. Mm-hmm. That's noted. Thank you. So that's approved. We then go now to the next item, which is item 12. Yeah, you may. Take care. Right. Are you ready, Michael?
Oh, is it frozen?
It's all right.
Is it?
Technical hitch. We'll just fiddle with a few things.
Is it frozen? Okay, there we go.
Right, thank you, Chairman. So, item number 12 relates to the Merck Sharp Dome site, shown here on the location plan. So just for reference, I'll be abbreviating Mark Sharp Dome to MSD from now on. The site is located off Breakspear Road South. The site measures approximately 5 hectares in area and comprises 22 one- and two-storey buildings laid out in an ad hoc fashion with extensive hard standing resulting from the implementation of piecemeal planning permissions since the 1990s through to the early 2000s. The buildings have been vacant for over 3 years, but were previously used by MSD as an animal research facility. When considered as a whole, the site is considered to fall under use class EG2 for research and development of products and processes. So this is the constraints plan and shows that the site is located within the green belt as indicated by the green colour on the screen. The red colour on the screen also shows or highlights the Brackenbury Farm moated site, Ickenham, which is located to the south and comprises a Grade 2 star listed house. Although not shown on plan, the site is also located a short distance to the north of the declared Hillingdon Air Quality Management Area. Further down Breakspear Road South, the road connects to Swickley's Road, which forms part of the air quality an air quality focus area as well. And further afield to the east, Ruislip is the Ruislip Town Centre air quality focus area. So there are a number of public rights of way in the area surrounding the site, including Route U42, which runs next to the site to the east. Route U41 runs to the north. Routes U43 to U48 are located to the east, and routes U49 and U51 are sited to the south. So this is a bird's eye view of the site dated 2019. To the north of the buildings and included within the application site, you can see an area of woodland next to an area of scrubland. More generally, the site sits within the wider farmland, within the Greenbelt and the Colne Valley Regional Park. Here you can also see the closest residential properties to the site, which includes Oak Farm, which is approximately 180 metres to the east or of the main body of the site, but right next to the access road shown to the right of the plan there. Gray's Cottages, which are 250 metres to the northeast, which is top right of the plan. And Brackenbury Farm, previously referenced, which is 150 metres to the south at the bottom of the plan there. Right, so this is a satellite image taken from more up-to-date Google Maps. So you can see the extent of works associated with HS2, the compound which stretches from east to west to the south of the site. This was formerly owned by MSD and is now used as a staging area for plant and construction materials associated with the construction of HS2. So this is a three-dimensional view of the site again, taken from Google Maps. You can see the dense area of tree planting adjoining the site to the east, forming a visual buffer in the landscape. As per the Greenbelt designation, the area is generally undeveloped, apart from MSD and the HS2 compound. So this image and table identifies 22 buildings on the existing site, including barns, storage spaces, offices and plant. The more ancillary buildings, which are primarily for plant are not numbered here, and explains why the image only shows 16. But when totaling up all of the existing floor space, the total comes to 6,710 square metres. So moving on to some site photos. Building 1 is shown at the top left of the screen. This is the only building which is to be retained, and as part of the proposal it is to be refurbished and used as offices, ancillary to the main proposal. The rest of the buildings shown on this slide are to be demolished. So moving on to the next slide, again, all of these buildings are to be demolished as part of the proposals, and again, all of these are going to be demolished. So, moving away from the main body of the site, this is an image of the existing access to the site taken from Breakspear Road South. I've indicated on the point from which the photo was taken on the right-hand side with the satellite image and a red arrow indicating where what it shows. This photo is taken from further within the site, facing east, again showing the access from Breakspear Road South. The HS2 compound is on the right of the image. This is facing north towards the public right-of-way, which again runs to the east side of the main body of the site. And this is facing west with the main body of the site straight ahead and towards the right, and with the HS2 site again to the left this time. This is a photo taken from the public right-of-way, route U42. And you'll note how kind of dense the planting is along that stretch. This is another image from the same public right-of-way, but indicates a bit of a break in the tree line. I should note that this is the exception. Most of this route is, heavily screened along this route. Right. Moving on to the proposal. So this application seeks permission for the retention and demolition of existing buildings, construction of new buildings, all within use class B8 with ancillary uses, alongside hard standing, widening of the vehicular access off Breakspear Road South, associated car parking, cycle parking, enhanced landscaping and ancillary works. This is the proposed site layout plan, which shows coverage of the development across the plot. This is the same plan, a bit more zoomed in. So building 1 is shown as retained and refurbished on the western portion of the site. 4 new warehouse-style buildings, named buildings 2 to 5, are arranged around a slightly realigned central access road, connecting Breakspear Road South to the east with the retained building 1 to the west. Buildings 2 to 5 would have an operational yard associated with them, of varying sizes, but always to the south of each associated building. Whilst all car parking spaces for the development would be provided at the western end of the site, surrounding building 1. So this is again more zoomed in this time to the western portion of the site, showing the car parking layout in more detail, as well as the retention and proposed planting of new trees. And again with also with what are termed as attenuation ponds and amenity ponds as well. This is the middle of the site. I'll come on to this in a bit as to how this is going to function. This is the east of the site, again showing the layout in more detail, the retention of trees, the proposed tree planting, and another attenuation pond there. So this is the typical yard layout plan. Sorry, let me just catch up with my notes. So the warehousing development is proposed to use both the warehouse buildings and external yard spaces for storage of materials, objects, vehicles and equipment. This plan shows the typical yard layout plan, indicating space for external storage and circulation space for vehicles and workers. The level of storage will inevitably fluctuate as materials and equipment is catalogued, cleaned, repaired, stored and then moved for use on active construction sites elsewhere. This is the proposed elevations for building 1. So this is going to be maintained as offices ancillary to the primary use, as shown here by the floor plans, again arranged as office space. This is building 2. It's similar in general design principles to building 1 with the green cladding. This one differs in terms of its use. It will be used as warehouse storage. This is building 3, again very similar. Warehouse storage again. Building 4 for warehouse storage. Building 5 again for warehouse storage. Right. So buildings 2 to 5 are proposed at heights ranging from 8.7 metres to 10.7 metres. Each unit would utilise horizontal bands of cladding, which would sit on top of a concrete facade as a foundation. Show there. Darker green bands of cladding are proposed at the bottom of each building, and they progress upwards to lighter bands of cladding. The green colour scheme would blend in well with the greenbelt aesthetic, and the bands of cladding would achieve some variation in the facades. Right, moving on to the site sections. So this is the long section comparison for the site as viewed from the northeast, with the existing buildings shown in white and the proposed highlighted in the kind of pinky red colour. This is the other section comparison as viewed from the southwest. This exemplifies changing levels of the site, which rise from southeast to northwest. The proposed buildings will generally sit within the existing mass of buildings spread across the site. Now taking you to the visual impact analysis. This is the view taken from the public right-of-way route U41, which is approximately 400 metres to the north of the site. The development is shown by the red wire lines there in the middle, and evidence is that the change in levels in the landscape would not allow for views of the development from this point. Again, this is from route U41, but slightly further east along that route. Same again, the site is shown in red in the middle of the image there, and it would be screened by that tree planting and woodland. Again, further east, same story. It would be screened by dense woodland that exists within and adjoining to the application site. This is a slightly different view, but to the east, which shows the Oak Farm property on the left. But again, in terms of whether this site would be seen or proposal would be seen from this public vantage point, it would not be. It would be screened again. And this is again from the east, but from the access road taken off Breakspear Road South. Exact same with the point about screening. This is importantly the only point at which has been identified that the site could be seen from a public vantage point, which is from the south. The existing image is shown at the top, proposed is shown at the bottom, again with a satellite image on the bottom left indicating where it's viewed from. And this is again a similar viewpoint, but looking slightly further towards the right. So let me just quickly catch up with my notes. So the proposed development would be visible from this view, but would lie below the skyline defined by the trees in the background. The HS2 railway line would also screen the lower parts of the development, which is shown by the very faint light green line, if you can see there. The extent and height of the buildings proposed would also appear similar to the existing buildings on site. And then this is the final viewpoint, which is taken from approximately a kilometre away to the southwest on Harville Road. Much of this road is heavily planted up with hedging, and again, you wouldn't have there wouldn't be significant frequent places where the site and development could be viewed along this road. In terms of a greenbelt summary and quantifying the proposal, it is highlighted that the footprint of buildings would decrease from 5,600 approximately to 4,000 square metres. That the volume of development would decrease from 31,300 cubic metres to 30,000 1,800 cubic metres. However, it should note as well at the same time, although that is decreasing, there is also an increase in the quantity of developed land from 18,900 to 21,000, and a decrease in soft landscaping from 30,400 square metres to 27,500. So there, like I said, there's a reduction in quantity of buildings and volume in terms of footprint and volume, but there would also be an increase in the quantity of actual, developed land on this site. Right, so alongside this, it is important to consider that development would use the external yard spaces for storage of materials, objects, vehicles and equipment. This has been considered in detail, and it is proposed that Condition 9 restricts the coverage and maximum height of storage in these spaces in order to protect openness. It is proposed that no more than 80% of each yard space is used for storage, that the storage heights are capped at 6 metres for yards 3 and 4 in the lower areas of the site, which is outlined in red on that plan there, and the storage heights are capped at 5 metres for yards 2 and 5, which are slightly higher in the site and are outlined in orange yellow. There would be no storage in the car park surrounding building 1 and no storage on any of the soft landscaping portions of the site. So taking into account that the site is significantly well screened from public vantage points, that the proposal includes tree planting throughout the site, including the boundaries, that it would reduce the volume and footprint of buildings, that the external storage yards can be managed through securing an appropriately worded condition. It is concluded that the proposed development would constitute redevelopment of previously developed land without having a greater impact on openness than the existing development, and in accordance with the MPPF, it would constitute appropriate development within the green belt without the need to demonstrate very special circumstances. Just to conclude quickly, sorry, it's taken a bit of time. As part of the application process, we did consult residents. We sent consultation letters, advertised in the local paper, displayed site notices. The Economic Residents Association was consulted directly, and they confirmed that they had no comment on the proposals. Following the completion of this exercise, a total of 2 objections were received, and these are summarised on the screen there. I'll read them quickly. The development would have a significant impact on the environment and quality of life of residents. Development would have a detrimental impact on local community, recreational opportunities, wildlife habitats and visual amenity. The development would increase traffic and noise from industrial use. Lorries travelling at night are already impacting on neighbouring residents. Breakspear Road South is adversely affected by HS2, and the greenbelt should be protected. So the impact on visual amenity and greenbelt has already been covered in previous slides, but I will quickly cover the matters relating to noise and disturbance, ecology and wildlife, and HS2. So with regard to noise and disturbance, a noise assessment was submitted and reviewed by the council's noise specialist. This outlines that the site operations will include material handling, vehicle movements, but they would fall below the prevailing background sound levels at the nearest noise-sensitive receptors. This is largely a result of the isolation of the site, the fact that the nearest neighbouring residents are quite a distance away. Compliance with this report is proposed to be secured by conditions 3 and 10. Condition 10 would specifically secure that the operational development shall not exceed 5 decibels below the background sound level, or 35 decibels, whichever is higher. And despite the conclusions, officers did have some concerns over the impact of HGV movements in the early morning and evening hours, and responding to this, we have agreed condition 14, which is on the screen there. And in essence, no movements are allowed between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Monday to Saturday, 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. on Sundays and bank holidays, and when movements are allowed, they are restricted between the more sensitive hours, which are between 6 a.m. and 7 a.m. and then again at 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. no more than 10 between 6 and 7, no more than 15 between 7 and 8, and no more than 4 between 8 and 10, 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. Quickly on ecology, the site is not subject to any statutory conservation conservation designations. There'll be unlikely to be, significant impacts as a result of the proposal. Bat surveys have identified some bat roosts, and conditions are proposed to address those issues. Conditions in relation to the landscape scheme would also secure replacement tree planting, totaling 113 in this case, and condition 24 would again back this up and support an ecological enhancement scheme which should theoretically deliver living walls or roofs, as well as bird and bat boxes within the fabric of development. And sorry, finally to conclude on HS2. Sorry, let me turn this page. So one comment was received relating to cumulative impact. The HS2 compound sits to the south, as previously discussed. Construction vehicles currently transport materials along the HS2 Hall Road, which runs east to west, connecting West Ruislip to Harwell Road. This differs to the traffic associated with the proposal, which would run up and down Breaksbury Road south. The Council's Highways Authority have considered the detail of the application and confirmed that movement of materials for HS2 by vehicles is now relatively small, and that there would not be unacceptable cumulative impacts on the highway at the most sensitive AM and PM peak periods. The HS2 safeguarding team was also consulted and confirmed no objection to the proposals. So based on that, officers would conclude that for the reasons set out within the committee report and subject to securing necessary planning conditions and the Section 106 legal agreement, the proposal is considered to accord with the development plan and is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Michael. Very complicated, but very thoroughly done. Well done. Thank you. Right. Do you want to go take over? I've got Darren, Councillor Davis. I'm going to call you Darren, but Councillor Roy. Roy is after, and then Councillor Bennett. Right.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to note that this, I think, is one of the most thorough reports we've had for a long time. And I was a bit dubious about Greenbelt, but when you read the report, you can actually see that the buildings that are already there are going to be replaced with smaller buildings. With the implementation of Condition 14, is going to enhance the greenness of the site and protect it. I would be happy to go with officer's recommendation, especially from that in-depth report.
Thank you. So I have a proposer, Councillor John Dalton.
Thank you, Chair. I remember a time when we used to sit on the planning committee, you mentioned Greenbelt, and it was a no straight away. Now it's on balance, trade-off from one to the other, less development area from 1,600 square metres, and yet we've got landscaping is down by 3,000. Now, they mentioned a lot about the screening, and obviously we've got to be extremely tight on this replanting of these trees that we're taking away. But nothing has been mentioned on what's going to happen during the autumn months and the winter months when the likelihood leaves will be falling and these buildings are higher than that line. And going off page 111, the urban design officer has suggested that the storage height should be reduced to 3 metres. Could officers comment on that, please? Thank you.
Do you want to?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So, officers have had quite lengthy negotiations with the developer and applicant team in relation to that condition, restricting heights across the site. In essence, what is being proposed to be secured in terms of heights is the only arrangement that would result in a viable operation of this site. We also wouldn't generally consider it to meet the tests to secure any further reductions in the height restrictions, purely because, in the main, because of the extremely dense woodland screening on the east side of the site. And I note that there are comments made about seasonal variation, which is appreciated, but the fact that there's the extent of what exists is significant enough that officers feel comfortable that even in the winter months that it still would result in significant screening. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Yes, you may come back if you wish.
Yeah, the reason why I make that point, Chairman, is this is an expert who's made his opinion on the 2nd of the 6th, 23, compared to everybody else. His is the closest to this committee date. So, am I right in what I'm understanding, that the expert has put his opinion through and the officers are saying no to that?
Yeah, so, we consult urban design as part of the application process. We take the, expert consideration, opinions into consideration, but ultimately, we have to, weigh up the considerations, balance what is reasonable in this situation, and we've concluded that what's proposed in terms of the conditions as presented before the committee is that, and that it would be unreasonable to restrict it any further than that.
Okay, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Chairman. It's always a real irony when you talk about Greenbelt and then you look at a picture like that and you see what HS2 has done to just one relatively small section of countryside near here. My question, and it's probably not really a material planning consideration, just a curiosity, and a positive in a way. I'm guessing with the change of use and the types of buildings that are now proposed to be constructed, more warehouse facilities, that animal testing on the site is kind of a thing of the past. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. So the site has been vacant for at least 3 years as well. So it's not been in operation for that use. And yes, the proposed use would be for warehouse storage and distribution purposes.
Anything further?
No, I think that is good news for the animals.
Okay, Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chairman. On everything I've heard and what the officer's response, I would be happy to second Councillor Davies's go with the officer's recommendation.
Okay, Councillor Mann, sorry.
Just a very quick one. I do echo the comments made by the council in terms of the thorough report, so well done to the officers. I've got one final point. On page 99, it says, just trying to find it now, in regards to HS2, will be consulted on this application. Any concerns raised by HS2 should be satisfactorily addressed prior to the application being determined. Has anything come back from HS2 in terms of concerns?
Be lucky. Michael, go on.
Yep, thank you, Chairman. So, yes, we have consulted the HS2 safeguarding team, and they have confirmed in writing. I don't know what page that is. Sorry.
99.
But the comments that are made on page 99 are from the Transport for London. I think they're just flagging that we should make sure we do consult the HS2 safeguarding team.
Yeah.
And we have done that, and we have received confirmation from them that they have no objections to the scheme.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor
Thank you, Chair. Just a question about the waste management. It's going to be performed by the private entity. Do we have any indication what times, what the frequency is, and what type of waste they will generate on the site?
Michael, when you're ready.
I think we've got an outline service and delivery plan submitted as part of the application, but we do also have a condition proposed on. Sorry, let me have a look. If we don't have condition number 30. Oh, sorry, there we go. Delivery servicing waste management plan. So that would secure further details, and we can add any further requirements within reason if you do require that.
Okay. Well, you've all had your say. I'm going to have mine now. First thing, very happy with the contribution of 320,000. Correct? Yeah, for the environment. So that's a bonus. Two things: lighting. I just want to make sure that the lighting is synthetic and it turns off when no one's on site. Obviously, they can have dull thing, but it doesn't affect the wildlife. Also, to make sure that when they exit the site, that they can't turn into the village. So there'll be no. Is it a left turn, or am I getting that? Is it left into Harefield, isn't it? Where it is? Yeah. If I remember. It's where I walked for a while. Yeah. So I don't want to make sure that there is no left turn. I don't want lorries and trucks going through the village. Well, they're not allowed to. They're going to get fined anyway. But just to make sure that we make. I don't know, probably informative. I don't think we can condition that if we can. Okay, so those are my points. So, is officers happy with those ones, or yeah?
Yep.
So we can put those in. So those are added to the conditions already, which is about lighting to be monitored so it doesn't affect wildlife and is sympathetic to the area. Obviously, I appreciate they need security, so we have to don't be overzealous on that. And also, there's no left turn into Harefield Village. I think they've got enough links to get onto the M40 if they turn right. So, is that okay? I'm going to hold off it. Go on.
I think the left turn will be an informative rather than condition.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you very much. On that note, I've been proposed and seconded. Can I show of hands those in favour of this application for approval? Thank you very much. That's approved. Okay, now to the last item 13, 579 to 583 Uxbridge Road. We'll just do a quick shift. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate it.
Have to look down the line for the names.
Yeah, sorry, I should have moved that along. Just before we start, I just want to draw members' attention to the addendum. We do have an addendum on this item. The addendum relates to an amendment to condition. Sorry, I haven't got it in front of me. Condition 12. We're adjusting that condition just to reimpose the M43 standards condition. So the applicant will be required to submit plans demonstrating compliance with the 10% set out in the London plan, which is the equivalent of 3 units across the 21 unit scheme. And I'll refer to that again in a moment once I take you through the presentation. Item 13 relates to a section 73 for amendments to an existing permission on the 579 to 583 Uxbridge Road site in Hayes. The description of development is as reads on the screen. An application submitted under section 73 of the Town and Country Planning Act 1990 to vary condition 2, which is the approved plans condition, and condition 3, which is the general compliance with supporting documentation of planning application reference 72470 2016 4648. That application provided permission for the demolition of the 3 dwelling houses and the redevelopment of the site to provide residential accommodation within 2 new buildings with associated access, parking, landscaping and amenity space. The amendment is sought to increase the number of dwellings by 2 and amendments to the vehicle and cycle parking provision. Here we have a location plan. The site is shown in pink. The site lies to the south of the Uxbridge Road. The site was formerly occupied by 3 single-family dwelling houses, but as I said when I went through the description of development, the site does benefit from planning consent for the demolition of those 3 buildings and the construction of 21 residential units across 2 blocks. As shown on this constraints plan, the site is not subject to any main constraints which would restrict the redevelopment of the site, and as explained in the 2 previous slides, it does already benefit from planning consent. I'll take you through some of these plans. So here we have the proposed site plan. The building which is subject to amendment is this building here, which is block A3. And for reference, this is block H. So when we refer to the 2 buildings which are subject to the main permission, it is block H and block A3. There is a further development to the north of the site where there is access provided from this site. That application was approved and has been built out. It was a former industrial site. It is now a residential site. So you'll see some blocks which are block A2 and I believe that is block A1 just to the north. You'll see those in photo form as I get towards the end of the presentation. This is a plan which shows the external works. We are going to reattach a condition requiring a revised landscaping scheme, and that is just to accommodate for the fact that the parking arrangement, particularly this space here, does appear to slightly block or obstruct that access. So that was a minor concern of ours, but we believe it can be restricted by condition, so we don't believe it would be reasonable to refuse the application on that basis. Here we have the proposed ground floor plan. This is the originally approved ground floor plan for block A3. And here we have the originally approved ground floor plan and an approved ground floor plan which was approved under a previous Section 73 application. Here is the proposed east side elevation. We have the proposed north and front elevation, the rear south elevation, and the west proposed elevation. This is an overhead bird's eye view. This, you'll see here, these were the three single family dwellings, where I referred to the adjacent site as being redeveloped and occupied. That is these two buildings here. That building, which is block A2, is situated here. Here is the development site. Development site again from front. You'll notice block H is constructed. That's to the rear of the site there, and that's the front of the site. Let's just take site plan. Okay. As stated at the start of the presentation, the application seeks to amend the approved plan's condition to facilitate an increase in the number of units from 21 to 23. The two ground floor 3-bed units would be retained as 3-bed units, but would be reduced in size to create the internal space required to provide 2 additional 1-bed units. With regards to the principle of development, this has already been established through the existing consents for the residential intensification on this site. It is accepted that there is a minor decrease in the percentage of family-sized dwellings from 19% to 17%. However, this is as a result of the increase in the number of units rather than the loss of family-sized units. As such, the revised unit mix is considered to be acceptable. It is noted that the two approved 3-bed units, which are subject to change, would remain compliant with the internal space standards, so effectively they would remain as 3-bed units. However, according to the previous permissions, these units were proposed as part of the M43 wheelchair standards and accessible standard units. To ensure that the development proposed conforms to the M43 standards policies, which require 10% provision, we are proposing to amend Condition 12 as per the addendum to ensure that the proposed plans are revised to demonstrate compliance with both the local and London Plan standards. It should be noted that the proposal has been reviewed by the Council's Access Officer, as stated in the report, who has raised no objection subject to this condition. The revised layout would result in a window which serves the bedroom for Unit A301 being located within 3 metres of the flank elevation of Block A2. Whilst this does result in a restriction in outlook, daylight and sunlight to this bedroom, this needs to be viewed in the context of the total number of bedrooms across the entire development, which is 41. Turning to parking, it is noted that TfL have requested a reduction in the overall parking number of parking spaces. The original application secured 21 spaces for the 21 units, resulting in a car parking ratio of 1 space per unit. The proposal does not seek to increase the number of spaces allocated to the 23 units, which results in a reduction in the parking ratio from 1.1 to 0.9. Whilst this is not a significant reduction, it is considered to be unreasonable and would not be justified to expect the applicant to reduce the number of parking spaces which have already been approved. As such, the proposed quantum of parking to be retained is considered to be acceptable, albeit the design does need to be reviewed, and this is accounted for within the landscaping condition suggested to be attached to the decision notice if members are minded in approving the application. In response to the TfL comments, the applicant has increased the number of cycle parking spaces from 36 to 43, which complies with London Plan standards. With regards to affordable housing, the applicant has submitted an FEA which is in two parts. The first is an additional review which takes into consideration the increase in units from 21 to 23. The second is information to discharge the early stage review mechanism, which was included within the Section 106 as part of the main permission. The revised FEA does not propose to increase the financial contribution of £151,600 secured in lieu of the delivery of affordable housing on site as part of the main permission. The revised document has been reviewed by an independent viability consultant on behalf of the LPA, who confirms that the scheme cannot viably deliver an increase in affordable housing, and the £151,600 contribution is the maximum reasonable required by the London Plan. In addition, the viability consultant has confirmed that the details submitted to evidence compliance with the early stage review mechanism are acceptable. In regards to amenity space, as a direct result of the increase in the number of units, the number of occupants is increased, and so has the requirement for amenity space. The original application secured 370 square metres. However, taking into consideration the two additional units, 550 square metres should be provided. The principle of a financial contribution to offset the shortfall in amenity space was accepted in the determination of the main permission. As the demand for amenity space has increased, an increase is proposed to the open space contribution to £6,111 to reflect the shortfall in on-site provision. In summary, the proposal seeks to amend both the approved plans and compliance with supporting documentation conditions to enable an increase in the quantum of units from 21 to 23. The proposal would result in a reduction in 2 oversized 3-bed units, but would not result in the loss of family-size units. The development would comply with the internal space standards. However, a condition is suggested to be attached requiring the applicant to demonstrate compliance with accessible living standards. Further conditions are proposed to secure an improved parking layout and landscaping scheme. Subject to these conditions and an agreement to enter into a deed of variation to secure the increase in the contribution towards local park improvements, the application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Well done, Chris. It's quite thorough. Okay, who's going to... Anybody? Councillor Chandel.
Thank you, Chairman. 3 houses, going to knock them down, make 21 lovely flats, or 23 was it? The parking, understand TfL, we've got a P-tail value of 3. So this takes us, I think the officer said, to 0.9. Is that what our TfL actually suggesting should be any further? I don't understand that, you know, how we have more flats and we have less parking.
Yeah, I'll just let... I can't possibly comment on that, but I will let officers... Chris, would you like to take that away?
Yeah, so in essence, the main permission would have been approved under the local plan parking standards, which would have sought for a maximum parking allowance for these units. Effectively, that would have been 1 for 1. However, we now refer to the London plan standards, which are significantly less than our local plan standards. So what TfL are saying is this does generate a new permission, therefore they would like to see a further decrease in the number of parking spaces. However, it would be unreasonable for us to expect a developer to reduce the number of parking spaces which have already been approved previously for this application.
So in the nutshell, we're sticking it to TfL and we're keeping to what residents want. They want them at parking. Yes, Councillor Chandel.
Yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it's almost like Lego planning, really. You know, how many more units can we sort of put in here? But I go with what officers are saying. It's policy compliant. We're sticking to TfLs. There's not much else there. It fits in with the street scene, so I think there's not much else to discuss there. And I would like to go with the officer's recommendation. But I would like to also make a comment on some of the photos that you showed. If you could show the ones where you had those triangular buildings. Yeah. All I would say is, I know this road. In terms of street scene, I don't know how that fits in. No way does that fit in. But, hey, I'm 60 now, so I'm getting old. But yeah, I still reiterate. I'll go with officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Chairman. This is close to my ward. I pass this every day. It's a shame to see 3 houses going, but on the plus side, we're getting further houses on balance with use. We're getting further properties for residents of Hillingdon. And normally the amenity space, I would be the first one to say that the lack of amenity space, but there's a park directly behind it. There's a park opposite it. It would be silly not to go with officer's recommendation, so I would be happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Councillor Singh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers. All information they give us in detail. Have any plan for any planting the trees around that building or anything?
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, so what we've asked for is for the landscaping condition to be reintroduced so that we can receive and determine an improved landscaping scheme. So at the moment, the landscaping scheme has been discharged for the main permission, but we are asking members to reimpose that condition so we can get to a point of an improved landscaping scheme for this particular site.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So I support the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Garlick.
Just wanted to mention that I've got a few concerns about this development. Firstly, there's the lack of affordable housing. Second, that even the second updated financial viability assessment didn't bring any extra contributions, although there are 2 extra flats. And also, it's noted in the report that there's a slight and minor increase in density, but I think the density is very close to the maximum on this project.
Yeah, the density, according to the London plan, which is the Mayor's plan, in his policy is to have less confined density. In our plan, we have more density, but I think there was a contribution. Chris, I was going to call you Hayden.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So, 2 things. The FEA question, in terms of the original FEA, that would have been written some time ago. It was determined under probably what would have been much better market conditions. So we've got significantly challenging market conditions, and I think if we were looking at a brand new planning application, I'm not sure whether or not we would actually be in receipt of any affordable housing whatsoever. I think the fact that the affordable housing contribution has been paid means that we wouldn't accept any less of a contribution, but it's been reviewed by a financial viability expert who actually undertook the review of the initial planning application, initial FEA. The experts considered it to be robust and robust enough that they've discharged the obligation for the which was attached for the applicant to provide suitable evidence of an early stage review. So that's where they would provide information to us to see whether or not there was any surplus identified to take in additional contribution. So officers are happy with that.
But I thought you said you readjusted the amount that they were going to pay for the 106, not for that.
Yeah, so that actually relates to the open space contribution. Yeah, so that's not for the financial viability assessment. Just in terms of the density are guidelines only. So we will review density on a site-by-site basis. Officers have no concerns regarding the density of this development. An increase in 2 units by HAB room. There's only 2 HAB rooms associated to these two units because they are only 1-bedroom units. So we wouldn't consider that to be significant enough to raise as a concern and a reason for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that okay? Yeah? Okay. So I'm proposed and seconded. Can I have a show of hands those in favour of this officer's recommendation? So that's unanimous. Yeah, that's unanimous, sorry. Just had a thought that it might not be, but anyway. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thank you, officers, for all your hard work, and I will close the meeting now.